I've spent the last year progressively having more and more conversations about internet arguments, and this is with adults. Professionals arguing online, sending each other cease and desist letters, people submitting ethical violations on one another. Like, it's a lot. And we need to talk, but spoiler, I'm not sure I have any answers, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are if you listen to mine a bit. And I welcome you to poke holes in my logic as well. So when I entered the field in 2009-ish, I was painted with this picture of a world of scientists that understand the world around them, all aiming to build a better world through behavior analysis. Now I realize this was a bit naive, but as a field that understood human behavior, we should be able to step back, analyze, and reconsider what's the best course of action, right? Wrong. The first annual conference I went to was ripe with controversy. In short, the practice of behavior analysis, those implementing the technology to help others, wasn't getting along with the academic circles. And through a lot of conversations the past decade, I've actually learned about a lot of these rifts, as I will call them, be they maybe relational frame theory versus verbal behavior to language approaches and understanding how things work. Positive behavior supports in schools actually has a very polarizing perspective in behavior analysis. I can link a video at the end if you want to check that out down below with a guest that critiqued it at one point. Traditional functional analysis versus practical functional analysis, this whole Iwata, Fisher, Hanley discussions that go on, like it can just go on, and it's only growing. And this seems to be escalating with the explosion of the credential of the Behavior Analyst Certification Board and what they've designed, and the explosion of online and social media platforms. What it does is it comes with the conditions for a lot of people to share their opinions, marketing their tools, services, practices, and this is fantastic. I would never want this to go away. I just think it's something that's igniting the fire, the two of those. Online tools, social media, things like that. And the democratization that has been brought as a result of the internet, and then our rapidly expanding field. And I've come to believe that rifts like this are predictable and likely to just keep going. I had a recent member meetup where we discussed a two-part book series that highlighted this through narrative. Hank Green has a fantastic book where he's discussing through narrative, really, what happens when social media enters a particular community and what it can do and how it can change people and fraction communities and cause issues for a larger culture. I know this is a lot, but that two-part narrative book is a fantastic read for anybody that's interested in this. And if for some reason you're questioning like, narrative as part of this, just know that he's the co-creator of VidCon, a 30,000 plus conference that happens annually, typically outside of this year with everything that's going on. And YouTube channels like Crash Course, SciShow with billions of views. Like, in short, I believe he has a great pulse on the data of various circles. And I think that ours is no different. I really encourage analysts to read or listen to those two books. I've linked them down below. Now, if you take this a step further and you look into experts on the attention economy, there's always been an attention economy. That is, people are competing for our eyeballs. You can see that specifically through things like this great newspaper piece that Gary Vee puts up there. But what happens is these forms, the topographies start to shift and morph over time. And there's a slow adoption phase, and then there's an attention grab for it. And you can see this going on in our field, I believe, right now. Hindsight will always be 2020, but it seems like that's what's going on. You see more and more podcasts, more and more voices, and this is a good thing, again. But there's also this struggle to remain relevant as more and more comes online, right? Up in the bar, thinking a little bit differently, and there's this fight, right, going on for limited attention of the various behavior analysts and constituents that are on the field, that are on these platforms. And so I believe our field is going through what other industries have experienced in a far greater way. Now, to slow down here for a second and get people to think a little bit deeper on this, what we see works in behavior analytic content isn't the perfect analysis. It's not valid measures. What we're seeing is the soonest person to post a screenshot of maybe some BCB news, or the next meme that's going around that's just slightly altered in a way that spins it for behavior analytic consumers, or honestly really poor science communication riddled with logical fallacies and errors, or things that are just straight up have nothing to do with behavior analysis seem to be what's surfacing oftentimes through engagement, likes, shares, and this has me down lately. Like, it has me really rethinking my content, what I've put out there. But like, how do we regroup if we can't even have conversations, right? And it frustrates me. But I learned pretty early with one of our professors that this frustration doesn't really matter. He said something effective like, much to my amazement, the world still goes on. So with that story of like me being so naive that behavior analysts would be able to supersede human behavior patterns of falling into clickbait, watering things down for views, likes, laughs, falling into these mental traps of us versus them and the psychology that we've studied that pulls us apart, and engaging in things that actually continue to do it. Paired with this, what I'm gonna call right now a belief that we're still in the early stages of this field continuing down this path, it's left me wondering why. Like, why are we arguing? Like, why can a group of like-minded people aiming to make the world a better place find themselves at odds in the very thing that brought us together in the first place? Now, I think, and I say I think, and I'm curious what your position on this is, but I think that it's a shift in philosophy. That is, what were modeled to generations of behavior analysts in the past were things like backing up your statements with evidence-based articles, backing up your statements with data, and probably most importantly, having measures and procedures that were clearly accurate, reliable, and valid. Like, everyone knew how to really assess and make sure that that was happening, and that was a value, something that was held up high for everything. I'm not here to tell you which is right, but I can say that I'm on the side of validated, reliable, and accurate analyses, and I'm not sure that we modeled that well from the classes we collectively teach. I'll raise my hand, I teach these. The discussions that we have, I've had some poor conversations in the past, or the content that we post online or share at conferences. Again, I'll raise my hand on that. Or the supervision that we conduct. Again, I'll raise my hand. I slid out of supervision because I was sometimes really bad at the really important things that needed to happen in supervision. So I'm saying a lot of statements and I'm not backing them up, and I can imagine ways to measure this, but it would involve some pretty crazy stuff of like scraping stuff off of Facebook groups. And it's honestly not worth the headache, getting the approval, and nor do I have the skill sets. And I know that it's ironic that I'm producing a commentary on this, I get it. I'm working on redesigning how I create content on this channel so that, and what I mean by that is people that have watched video content that enjoyed it and learned stuff, and it had the core important tenets of a scientific understanding, like a natural science built into it. I want people to enjoy the content, but I don't want to have opinions or logical fallacies riddled throughout. So this is meant as a commentary. Some of, honestly, why I haven't been uploading consistently. I've just been dealing with a bunch of this, the afterthoughts that come with it, and just kind of been beaten into the ground lately when it comes to just not knowing if certain content is even worth making. I don't know. But I'm back, I'm refreshed, I'm recharged. And this is just some things to consider that may be functioning to further divide us apart, drive us apart. It's one part technology driven, I think, and one part lack of clear leadership and training on what our core tenets are in this field and why they're so important. I think what I've seen in the past 10 years is these conversations have literally shifted from how are you sure that this is what you know to don't question my perspective. And that's scary for a science. And I think we could find a middle ground that served both and was better off for the longevity of the field. But hey, that's just my perspective. I mean, wasn't radical behaviorism like the very science that could understand how to validate perspectives, get those measures and processes validated, accurate, and reliable, so we could have individual conversations in a way that allowed us to move the field forward? Because that's the science I read and fell in love with. If you enjoyed this, check out this video by Jaron Lanier, Fixing the Internet. It's a fantastic one. You can support my content through Patreon and subscribing down below and watching more stuff and sharing this. I would value your perspective down below. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next one. That's your Daily BA.